Greetings, emperors and empresses, kings and queens.
Blessed day. Our next real important episode of the Afro-Trinidadian.
Yeah.
You know, so we start off again with
episode 20.
20.
Yeah.
Milestone. Mass by Ogunwumi. Right, you know, we gain an African flavor. We don't have no choice, so we might as well represent. And I choose this one today on purpose.
Right, Black Power.
Black Power with the Trinidad in it, because Trinidad and Tobago has played a very important role in the whole movement, and we had our own Nubian Experience. Well, it wasn't planned there.
No.
Just to look outside this morning and find, outside it was looking real hot, and I only come in here for a while, and then I put on a vest.
Yeah.
And I come on a
Same thing.
Yeah, one of vest. Right?
And yours is from?
Okay, my outfit is actually from Ghana by Charisma.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know Charisma well?
Yes.
Yes.
And you can actually get Charisma here by Prindella Fashions.
And there's a story behind Charisma and Halox, which is Josephine. You know, years ago, there used to be this event taking place in Miami.
Right.
Where they would bring, I think you call it, I can't remember the word, but they used to bring African women in business from the continent to Miami.
All right.
And we went there, the organization, Kafra, Nzinga, and I, and another sister, because we wanted to go there to promote our festival.
Right.
And it is there we met 3 sisters from Ghana, which is Josephine, Faustina, and another sister, her name is Mrs. but she's also in the market every year. And we introduced them to our festival and so on. We had a little booth and we were promoting Emancipation and so on.
Right.
And we came, that we went like I think around February month, they came to the festival that same year. And they have never returned to that previous one and have always come to Emancipation in Trinidad and Tobago ever since. I mean, they have been coming here now close to 15 years.
And they are
actually kind of institution in Trinidad and Tobago. Josephine actually has set up a shop here.
Nice.
You know, so it's one of the amazing
linkages.
what you would say an achievement of the organization because they are coming to Trinidad and Tobago
and doing good business.
Yes, it not only the business component of it, but the quality of garments, their relationships that they have established and so on, have also not only encouraged local women, you know, to become part of this business, men and women, I should say, to become part of the business of promoting African clothes and culture and jewelry and so on. But they have also given us this pride. You know, it has also been synonymous with that growing pride of, you know, dressing like ourselves and feeling comfortable in our clothes, not as a special occasion. This is how we dress all the time. So I really thought it was interesting to bring that story to you to understand how did Josephine and Faustina start to come to Trinidad. I'm sorry I'm forgetting the other sister's name because it's 3 of them and all 3 still come.
All right, good.
So today, well, she already started.
Sorry.
That's why I know that's why that's why we learned something.
Yes.
We learned how something originated.
Yes.
Right? We have. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, so I'm Zakiya Wadada. I'm currently the chair of the executive chair, I should say, because that means I'm also the chair and the executive director of the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago.
Beautiful.
Right. So. We don't usually come with.
But we needed some
I felt like we needed that today. Right? So my first question to you is can you tell us the origins of the ESC and where it is today as an organization as compared to where it started?
The Emancipation Support Committee started really in response to the efforts of the world, I would say, in like I'm trying to get the year correct, I think it's 82, where they were celebrating the 100th 92, yes, I think it's 1992 would have been the 150th anniversary of the arrival of Columbus.
Okay.
It was 1942, so the 200th anniversary.
Right.
500th anniversary, yes, of the arrival of Columbus in the Caribbean. And the organization, like many others, have been fighting for August 1st to be recognized as Emancipation Day and not as Columbus Day, as you know. And very early following the Emancipation, the day was recognized as Emancipation Day, and then eventually it was changed to Discovery Day. And persons of African descent always had an issue with that.
Right.
And I mean, you have organizations like the National Joint Action Committee and a lot of other organizations in Trinidad who, in spite of the fact that it was called Discovery Day, would still have, you know, separate events for celebrating emancipation.
Right.
I think it was in about 3 or 4 years before 1992, however, the government did declare August 1st as Emancipation Day. But when that 500th anniversary came, there was this threat of all the celebration on that day in keeping with this commemoration of 500 years since Christopher Columbus came. And of course, we never think that was anything to celebrate, you know. So at that time, a number of organizations came together to continue to advocate very strongly that August 1st remains and that becomes the key. Because even when it was declared Emancipation Day, as I said, people were still celebrating it as Discovery Day because there were no major celebrations taking place in the society for emancipation.
Okay.
So there was this, that's what brought a number of organizations together that called themselves the Emancipation Support Committee to ensure that August 1st became entrenched as the day in which we celebrate the emancipation of enslaved persons from enslavement rather than Discovery Day. So that was sort of the genesis that brought the people together who formed the organization.
Nice.
Yes.
So you mentioned something, and I have a question on it here. As the new chair of the ESCTT, can you tell us of some of your plans going forward?
Well, the work, the shoulders upon which I stand, which is of course people like Kafra Tambon and Jasu Omowale, who were the first two founding chairmen of the organization, are very, you know, powerful shoulders, and the work that they have done have been tremendous. So my aim is to continue to ensure that the vision for the organization, which of course has grown and expanded over the years, from just only ensuring that we celebrate the festival, but also how we continue to raise the consciousness of our people by giving them the information that they need, by helping them to love themselves and love their culture and so on. And over the years, our programs, we have developed programs in an effort to do that. So what I would like to see, I would really like to see us have an institution, you know, of memory, an institution of remembrance that really solidifies the contribution and creates that landmark for the organization. We are hoping to do that, one with the Tracy Wilson Information Resource Center, which we are going to build at the back of our organization, which is going to be a place of learning. You know, the modern facilities, you know, computers, digital stuff, and so on.
Right.
So young people, everybody can come to learn. We also have some bigger ideas, of course, having a big space that belongs to the organization where we can facilitate even greater engagement with our people. So I would like us to have those institutions established, but I also, another, what you would call it, vision of mine is really building and connecting and networking I think not only locally but within our region and internationally, building strong networks so that this struggle of ours is really penetrated throughout the earth and we connect it where else it is taking place.
Right.
In fact, our theme for this year is advancing Pan-African solidarity towards a balanced world, because we understand the world is out of balance, and it has been toppled in that way for much too long, and then we saw the white supremacists really raising up and overtly taking, claiming their space, and therefore we feel that Pan-African solidarity is what is required to put the scales back in balance. So building those connections to me is very important. I really believe in working together because I think unity is indeed strength, and if we are able to connect, that's my own personal vision to strengthen that capacity of ourselves to connect and what we can make happen as a result of those connections.
Okay. All right. So you just mentioned the Pan-African community, right? So the Pan-African Festival, TT, is probably the largest of its kind in the world, and with world leaders coming in to participate locally, right? To speak also, countries send them to learn from the ESC, what the ESC does, and to replicate it in their country. So could you tell us about the journey from where it started to where it is today?
Yes.
The Pan-African Festival, because I want to say that, like, for me, when I got introduced to it, was 2002.
Okay, yes.
Right? My father, after meeting him, that was one of the things he told me I need to go on experience.
Yes.
Right? So I went down there, and my pause readings and talking this, because I know starting to get into it. I talking about this a few months after I started hearing with African regular. I am 42 years old now. In 2002 was the first time in my life I heard the word African more than once in a day. And that started in April. And then I came to the village in the July, and I was blown away. I'm like, like I vexed when we come Emancipation Day. Because on that day I found out it was going on 2-3 days before. And then I started here, presidents of countries here. Then I started to see delegates. I mean, I see a man walking around with our gold shoes. Someone from Ghana who had come out here. So you go with the pictures, we see our Shanty Kings and things, we cannot go that thing. I see them inside of there. So we started to realize now, and now I realize we used to call it just the Emancipation Village. But I think that is one of the things I want to move away from. I want to go to the Pan-African Festival, TT. And that's what we were to expand from where it started, to where it is now.
So as I said before, there have been Africans in our society, and remember like Lancelot Lane, Jaja Onilu, people who were always committed to celebrating emancipation. So they did it in communities, they would play their drum and do their chants, and they were very, even after the Emancipation Support Committee was formed, there were still little groups, everybody still trying to have their own festival, not only in Port of Spain, as a matter of fact. Point 14 was always a space where people always celebrated emancipation. But when the Emancipation Support Committee came together, they started the celebration and hosted it at Nukarako Senior Comprehensive. You may not know of that, but that's where the village used to be, in the Nukarako Senior Comprehensive School. Yes. And then they would have on the stage, the hall of the stage, we would have the lectures, because a big part of the festival in those days was Emancipation Day lecture. Because this is, that was the learning, that's where we started to invite, persons, James Small, and, some of the top lecturers in the US to come down and to speak and so on. So the festival, and that time, most of that time too, I did not even live here, because between the years of 87, 84 to 88 or so, I was not in Trinidad and Tobago. But I think it's 87 to 91. Some 4 years of my life I was living in Antigua. So a lot of sometimes I was not part of a lot of the actual celebrations in Nukarako. But when I came home, of course, I would go and participate and so on. But when in 1996, I remember, I will give you the story, in 1995, I think. I remember I was back home at the time, and I remember standing in front of the Memorial Park and watching the celebration. And at that time, they were going up Frederick Street, I think, to the Savannah. And I was really, I felt a little disappointment in my heart because I said, you know, we're here now in the 90s and so on. And when I saw the few people that were still participating, so it was just a few people, you know, these few diehards and so on. That same day, I met this brother, Michael. And you know, I was just in my head, and I was talking, and I was saying, listen to myself. I'm saying, you know, we need to do something about, you know, I felt the disappointment, and this voice in my head said, well, if you're finding anything, you should go and help make a difference.
Right.
Make a difference. That was a voice in my head, you know. So actually, the following year, I actually got in contact with Catherine because I knew Catherine from NGRTs. And then I realized that you could come in and volunteer to get for the preparation of the festival. And that same year, this other brother, I don't know why Michael's surname is skipping me, but he too came in to volunteer that same year. And that year, there was a determination to grow the festival.
Right.
So we had formed this we have this committee that dealt with that, and we started to make a list of almost every West Village group, trade union, almost all, and we called everybody and invited them to join this street procession.
Right.
And then, of course, not only that, we also try to determine how to get help for transportation. We was always in trouble with PTSC because we had no money, because those days we hadn't get anybody for the festival. So now we had to just, you know, say, okay, yeah, we will pay you, we will try to pay you, we will, you know, we do all kinds of crazy things to make sure we get the buses and so on. Eventually, every time we went up owing people, but eventually we get to pay all our debts eventually. But the point is, there was that determination. Yes, you know. And what was amazing is that that year when we had this first big festival coincided with the year that Lich Yasu transitioned. He transitioned that same year. And the village was immediately named the Lich Yasu Omowale village because he was, you know. And therefore, so in 1996 was a significant year because that is the year when we really got down into determining, and I was led by Michael because he was leading this process, and I was just there, came to volunteer along with others. But we worked day and night, all hours of the night. We call it. I mean, this was just an amazing experience to get people to come out, and just like you, that first year. When we got to the promenade and we saw just people coming from Cedros in their buses, from every part of the country in their African clothes, it was such an emotional experience. And Emancipation Morning has always been that for us because we get down there like 5 or 6 or 7 and then we just waited to see when the buses come in and the people are coming out of there, you know, and we just gather it. So people always say, why don't we have like a celebration in San Fernando, a celebration in Porto? I said, you see this coming together of everybody in this one spot is critical.
It is critical.
So if we have to have a thing before, let us on Emancipation Day, we must all come together. And it has remained, even for young people who come into the organization, Emancipation Day, Emancipation Morning, when we see the gathering of the people, it is one of the most beautiful experiences. We've had Africans, I think one of our African presidents said that this, for him, was the greatest celebration of Africa outside of Africa. that he has ever seen, And therefore, I think we have such a beautiful, and of course, this is all in keeping with the leadership and determination of CAFRA, and the directors, because at the time we were just, the volunteers working hard. But you see that determination, it's never say die. I mean, even when things look impossible, CAFRA was always like, no, we can do it. We have to make it happen. So that kind of energy was always, infused into us. It can happen.
Right.
It can happen. Don't worry. Even if we owe somebody, we pay them. It can happen. The point is we have to make it happen.
Yes.
And I think that we have been able to do that over the years. So that was the sort of the point of growth. So when people saw that the first year, to me, every year, and then, we had a little challenge when we couldn't use the Savannah, we used to have to go down to Micarapo and then not pass Piccadilly Street, which was a very painful experience to me.
Yes.
So what it is we did is that's when we started to do an early morning ritual to our ancestors in All Stars Panyard, and then we would do this mini procession from the Panyard down through Piccadilly, go by the River Village Square, and then we started now to say, well, okay, not only do we want to do that, when we get there, we want to have something, and that brought about the Freedom Morning presentation. So, our dear sister, Andrew Springer, she did the play, and so now we added that other element to ensure that the experience did not leave out totally the Piccadilly Street. And so that is how little things have happened over the years. And even though we have gone back to Savannah, we still do the morning ritual at All Stars Panyard. All Stars Panyard being a very significant historical landmark for us, because it was the site of the Camellia in Port of Spain. And therefore, so we continue to do that. And, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
But
before I go there, I want to go because I have had a problem with not just the Emancipation Support Committee, but other African black organizations not chronicling and putting out in such vividness what they do. Because this question I'm going to say here, people, including myself at one time, would often say, where is the ESC outside of the emancipation period? Can you enlighten us as to some of the things that the ESC does outside of the emancipation period? And why that is important is, I have seen some of the things that all of us do, but the only reason I see it because I am around, I am involved, right? I mean, you mentioned working hard, and I have seen that. I mean, I must go to the especially coming down to the emancipation period. I would go to set up the day before the village open, and I might reach and drop stuff in the daytime and come back in the night to jam back up and thing, and Khadija and Rain and Red and them running around thinking, and you've seen it, but we don't hear that. So that's why I'm glad to have you here today, because that little thing tell us
that's big for me.
We don't know these things, and because we don't know these things, we're looking at all the who work so hard. And watching all them, disrespecting all them, telling all them do nothing. But part of that is because all they never tell you. Right? So, and that's why it says, enlighten us to some of the things that the ESC does do outside of the emancipation period.
So remember, the organization was indeed established for the purpose of ensuring that we institutionalize the celebration. That was its original purpose.
Right.
But naturally, especially now when we start to engage the community and everybody, we always had an educational component, which was done through our lectures, because part of the celebration was always a lecture series. We always had this component of promoting our culture and giving artists who are in that particular niche, of African expressions, an opportunity to perform and to earn an income and so on. So, but all of those things was contained within the context of the celebration. And of course, some people just see the celebration and they see this one day and not understanding all the other things that's happening. They're giving an opportunity to our entrepreneurs. That was always part of the celebration. building that entrepreneurial capacity, giving them that space to those people who wanted to do those, again, Afrocentric products and so on. So all of those things, the entrepreneurial development was there, the education component was there, the opportunity for young people, we would have a youth day, we would have camps and so on. So all of that, and the festival really would have been launched in May, which is the African Liberation Day. And then we moved from May into June, then we introduced the Yoruba Village Drum Festival, and then so a lot of what we do and the different areas of development to which we are targeting is contained in the festival. But then we had persons always asking, what happened? What can happen outside of the festival? How can we engage? And that is how we formed what we call our Community Mobilization Committee. And this committee meets once a month. And I always give people the story. When we first started, of course, you know how people are. Yeah, we want to have a committee, we want to meet. Of course, when you say have meetings, one person come, two people come, or whatever. But I always tell people this story that what we did, what I used to do, if one person came, I had that meeting with that one person. And then I would write a report of what we discussed. And I would send it to all the other people.
Who didn't come?
By mail, because I'm doing email. So we started.
And I still get mail.
Yes. So if I had 2 people, 3 people, how many ever people came, I had a meeting with them, and I wrote a report, and I sent it to everybody. And this was like about 200 groups. So by doing that, over and over, because I always tell people it takes time and a lot of perseverance to build things.
Amen.
And you're the one who's trying to build and providing that leadership. You have to be consistent. Sometimes you guys, younger persons, I always say, they get fed up. They get too interested and so on. But you have to keep at it to show that you are consistent, that you are serious. And over time, we started to get like an average of between 25 to 30 people now coming to meetings every month.
Okay.
From all over the country, so that you had a strong enough core on which you build. So that was one of the things. And this community mobilization space allow us to connect with communities all over Trinidad and Tobago more than once a month, share what we do with them, have discussions as to how perhaps they can see their challenges within their communities and so through an Afrocentric lens and better, I have a stronger knowledge and build consciousness of themselves. So that was one of the things. And then with young people working in the office, because as Andrew will tell you, besides myself, everybody in the office are young people.
Okay.
After granny. And what they were saying is that the festival takes place during when school is closed. How can we now engage our young students outside of school and so on? And that is when we came up with this African History Quiz and a spoken word competition. Now, when we started it, we were aiming at children from in the communities, trying to get these communities, each of our community groups, to put out the team. Well, the first 2 years, we really struggled, to get people to respond and so on. So after like about the 3rd year or so, we said, listen, let us try to go to the schools. And I think that was in 2011. That was a struggle by itself. But eventually, we were able to get the Republic Bank, which was our bankers for years, and they were we were trying to figure out a way to really get them to support us, and they liked the idea of doing this quiz. So now we were able in African History Month, another significant time for us, and in November African History Month, we started the National African History Quiz for secondary schools and the National Spoken Word Competition for primary schools, which requires a tremendous amount of research because we create a manual for the children where we look at renowned Africans. So we give them, a brief, in a digestible manner, history of Africans, whether they are from Trinidad, the United States, or whatever. So, for example, we'll include at least 2 Calypsonians every year.
Right.
And then we do Africans in Science. And our Africans in Science include our paddies and all those the persons who are creative in art. So every year you will get a motivation in there, Anthony Williams. So we put those in. And then we have a general knowledge section, and we teach them about, countries of Africa, how to identify an African flag, whether one from the Caribbean, little things that we used to know a long time in school, this on the flag. I said, but our children don't know these things. And then we tell them about all the panorama winners over this. Yes, because some students don't even know the name of the seal orchestra in their community. So, so we all the winners of panorama over the years, and their what tune they played, who was their tuner, or the Calypsonians who would have won road march or the crown and those kinds of things. So it is not only, it is also focused on local and also international and general knowledge. And the general knowledge outside of Trinidad is really focused a lot on the continent. Sure. And then we do a section called African historical events. So we'll talk to them about, and mostly we try to focus a lot on Africa before enslavement. So we teach them about all our empires and so on. Right. And then, of course, but we still teach them about the revolutionary struggles. So we're talking about the Black Panthers and those kinds, and all those efforts, whether it be the US or the Caribbean, Haiti, and those things. So it's very beautiful. And the spoken word competition, I said the little ones in primary school, where we would give them speeches by Martin Luther King, or we do calypsos, like Sandra's died in the ghetto, those kinds of songs that tell so much about our experience as Africans and our history as well. Right. So we run this workshop with Mama M2, and she will just give them the background, and how M2 does it, and then they take one of these, prepare a booklet, and they recite it, and that is the competition. In addition to that, one other thing that we do outside of the festival, we also do capacity building for our community-based organizations, non-government organizations, where we do training in strategic planning, proposal writing, and so on. And now we're doing it online because we can't, and so on. So we work right through the year. And I mean, all that we do, we are also the Secretariat for the Caribbean Pan-African Network. This Caribbean Pan-African Network was established to facilitate linkages between the African Union and the Caribbean, because the African Union had the diaspora outreach. And the first network that was formed in the diaspora was the Caribbean Pan-African Network. And the first people outside of Africa to sit on an African Union organ, the Economic, Social and Cultural Committee, came from the Caribbean. And Catherine Kaufman, our chairperson, was the first person from the diaspora to represent the diaspora on the Economic, Social and Cultural Committee, which is a civil society organ of the African Union. Wow. Yes. And he, and of course, a sister from the Central America, Martha Johnson. So, and in addition, the only country that has hosted a meeting of the same civil society organ of the African Union outside of Africa is Trinidad and Tobago. Outside of Africa is Trinidad and Tobago. And so there's all of these amazing things that you say have happened. And in addition to, I want to take Andrew's point about our capacity perhaps to better promote and so on. But I also want to encourage our people to pay attention. Because we have to pay attention. Because when these things happen, they are in the newspapers. Right. But we read that. When we look into the newspaper, I said that, who cares about what's happening there? So it's also we have to pay attention. Right. We have to also pay attention. You know what our brother Tracy Wilson used to say? We have to mind our own business. And if it is, I always say, if it is, you don't know what's happening at the ESC, pick up the phone and call us and ask us. Don't stay out there and decide what you think we're doing, including that we teaching and we this and we that. You know, people let's come up with all kinds of things. You don't know.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone and find out. Because if we want to find out about other things that we do, and I'm not saying that at all to diminish our own responsibility to promote. And this is why we are hoping through our Facebook page and those kinds of things, which we are getting a little bit more present. But paid promotion and marketing is a costly thing.
It is.
So we have to know what the limited funds that you have, where do you spend it, even as we try to build our own capacity to promote and market. And so we are happy that when young people like you all bring me here to talk about it, that's part of you minding your business.
That's right.
And making sure that others know, you know. So we really appreciate that.
Good. So we have 2 more questions. You have questions?
I have 2 more here. You go ahead.
All right. So, well, one of them is not on the paper. So it's actually 3 questions, right? You mentioned just now all that goes on in the week of emancipation and all those things, right? Now I have
3 months.
The 3 months, sorry, right? But how is the pandemic situation going to affect these things going forward? Because I mean, Andrea's been trying to engage me to come out on an emancipation, but for some reason emancipation has always fallen on Saturday. And it's my busiest day. Right? So I've been trying, I want to come to the procession and that kind of thing, because now, for me, I want my children to get involved, right? I have very young children, 12, 8 and baby. And I have my big boy who's 20. But he's the one, he can have a little more practice, so he will follow what I'm doing. Versus the children now, they watch the YouTube videos and whatever, but you don't really see it in them yet. Right? And you know you don't see it until they get big, because I never realized I had this in me until the other day.
Indeed.
Right? So what are your plans to counteract the pandemic in terms of the celebration and getting people engaged outside of being able to come physically?
We're going online.
All right.
We have to. We did that last year. For the first time, we partnered with the UE campus to help us with some of the technical aspects of it.
Right.
And so we did most of our shows online. I mean, even for the entrepreneurs, we did a session called an online market, where they came and we filmed them, and everybody got a little mini video and we posted it and so on. So we attempt to do the same this year. This year is even more dire than last year, because at least around this time last year, things were going in a different direction. Now we are going ahead in a direction where people are even a little bit more scared, you know, resources are less and so on. But, you know, up to last night, we were having a meeting as to how we're going to do this. So we are exploring some new platforms that can give us some different kinds of capacities. I have to give a lot of praise and thanks to the young people with my work. I know Andrea, we remember in Tunisia, we have Renee, we have Rain, we have Karen, all of them. I know we have young Amina and Udo, they are trainees, or job trainees, but amazing young people who are willing to work hard, way beyond the call of duty, you know, just to make sure that, you know, they to become emotionally and personally invested in what we do. And to me, that's important. If you can have an organization that allows the people who work for you to become that invested in it and it is successful in what it is doing, and you're not paying no top price because you're an NGO, I think that too is very valuable, because that's the quality that is missing in our young people, where everything is related to profit and personal gain, and this idea of giving of self, which is one of the most valuable experiences a human can have. Just doing to give of yourself. You know, I don't think, because we don't do it as much as we did it before. But when I first went into the ESC, before I started to work at the ESC, we used to just work day till all hours of the night, that's what you were saying. But we did it because this was important. And we need to have our people, young people, understanding that. You know, so we are going to, we come up with ideas. I am a technical, what you would call it, I come out at a different age. So we say, yeah, we're going to do that, you'll figure out how to make it happen. So we will get to it and so on. So we are looking at doing the festival. We are looking also perhaps at curating some of our best work. Because we have tons of footage. I mean, you may not have seen Miriam Makiba when she came here to perform. You may not have seen Joe when she came here to perform. You may not have seen Sean Kuti when he came here to perform.
Well, I gotta meet him.
You got it right. But we have had some amazing, performances over the years. We also want to do some curation of some of those things and presenting our own Pan-African concert with some of the created stuff. Yes.
Angelique Joe. I remember we in the village, me and Mulufi and them selling her concert. I don't know who she is at the time. When she comes, Omodupe going bananas. Say, Kadisha, oh gosh, I want to make cheese. Only to find out about a year later, who are you like? Serious? I mean, like, I hear and she was right there.
That's right.
Yes.
Angelique Joe.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And the most amazing thing is we used to attend this conference every year in the US. Around the time when they normally have the Black Caucus sessions. And I met Angelique Kidjo at a very informal function. Right. She was there, she was singing, she was present, and she just they had her doing a few little numbers in a very informal session. And I said, this woman is amazing, and I went to her and I told her, we have a festival in Trinidad and Tobago, we would really want you to come. And so I think a year or so after I did write, and I don't remember me, I don't know, but Emancipation Support Committee, so we started to bring us up, and of course we had to negotiate, get a price that we could pay, but we were really amazed that she actually did come, and I mean, her impact on the crowd was amazing. I mean, she was in the middle of the savannah, she came on the stage, went right up into the crowd, very, really spontaneous, beautiful spirit. So we are hoping that we can pull some of that. We can still have a Pan-African event. We are looking at partnering with, some of the other persons who have been doing some strong online shows and have a good audience already to do some shows for this year. Some live ones would be like Pan and Jazz and so on. But our festival is going to happen. We have to keep this happening. We have to figure out how to do it, and we have to come up with something to keep that space and that time. Our major concerns are entrepreneurs because we're really determined that we must have a market this year. I'm still keeping fingers and toes crossed that hopefully by July things might ease down to a space that we can still have, when it's not these 2 grand affair, but at least a space to have a market for our entrepreneurs. But we're going to have a festival. Yes, using what is available.
All right. So you have 2 questions there, but I feel one of them might take about 15 minutes. Right?
I'm trying to make it short. I take long. I put a lot of words into answering a question.
Good. That's important. That's important, right? So one of the questions is the 1970 Black Power Revolution. How it affected you? Were you part of it?
Well, I was a teenager at the time. I was 15 years old, so now you know how old I am. And I was a student at St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain, no less.
Right.
So as a student of St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain, under no circumstances would you dare in your school uniform be seen, in any revolution, march and all of those things. Right. So because of the culture of the school that I was in, like other young people, I did not physically participate. Right. But as a young person, I was so interested in what was happening. That what was happening when they say, I read every single article in the papers that came out about that revolution. Because I, within my own self, always knew that I have a revolutionary spirit. Yes. I'm always questioning. I always want to know why this, why that. And I think that message of our blackness and our beauty was important to me as a 15-year-old. Because I was in a space where my blackness was very evident. Right. And in a space where that was not always considered to be beautiful. And I lived in a community because, in those days, when they get to be a certain age, you have to straighten your hair, your parents make them, you have to press your hair because you don't know how to do it in natural hair. But when the Black Power Revolution came, if you passed on the streets with press here, and those brothers on the block, well, I am telling you, all hell is going to break loose. Because they would touch you or you would have to cover your hair or something. So that also strengthened within me that determination to have natural hair. And I didn't feel offended by what they were saying because I understood the message of why we needed to love ourselves naturally. And that is one of the major changes I think that it made within me, that confirmation that I must wear my hair natural. And I mean, I think from those days also that my mother allowed me to do so, of course. I had, low afros and so on until I grew into locks. Right. So the consciousness, the appreciation of myself as a person who have been, heckled and tortured for your blackness, the texture of your hair, your features and so on. Yeah, not only in my school, from primary school days. You have a ponga ribbon and an ounce of plaques. That's what it is, children, because your hair so short, those guys, but one of the things that helped me to deal with discrimination, which I always think is important. My mother taught us to be polite. And there's something about being polite that is also self-strengthening. Yeah. You understand what it is I'm saying? And so I was always polite, and I knew I was bright. Because ever since I was small, everybody would tell me that you're very intelligent, you're very bright. So I grew up believing that. And then of course it would be expressed in my work, and I had teachers who were always amazed. So understanding my capacity of my mind and how I was able to deal with people made me strong. Right. And it made people forced to respect you as well. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So even though my friends may not have liked the black girl or whatever, she was bright. So if I'm having trouble with my schoolwork, even if I have to pretend to like you,
comment to you.
I have to come because I didn't know what it is you're doing. Yeah. So I'm saying the teachers as well, whether you like or not, I'm going to go, that's a bright one. So I'm saying building the things that we have to use about ourselves, and it doesn't always have to be your academic, also it could be a talent, a skill. Those are the things that we need and to strengthen ourselves. I always remember, even as a Rastafarian, when everybody had a lot I grew up as I became a teacher, a Rastafarian while I was teaching. Myself and my dear sister Manu Nali, I don't know if you all know that name. Right, that is yes, so we were good friends. And we both grew up together as teachers. So we became the first teachers in Trinidad to go to school with locks, And by extension, my son, my second to last son, was the first young man with locks to go to Fatima College. After some resistance, because he passed for that school, but I stood my ground and said, no, that's not a reason why he's not going to come to school here. So we had a battle with that, but I'm just trying to show you how all of these things happening within the space. And I remember when we, being that the first to grow our locks. Now I'm notice my mind has gone all over the place. I'm not using this one again.
The question?
Yes. So the point I'm trying to make, I always used to be like, I remember one day I was at home and I used to give lessons to children. And I looked out of my door and I saw two policewomen, I actually couldn't know why this police went to my door, And when she came, I came and I sat down and I was speaking out very casual in my home a lot. And she came for me to give her children lessons, And two things could have happened in that instance. I either became the teacher, the person who believes in herself and that I have the capacity to teach your child and so on, and present that self even in the physical frame of the locks.
Right.
Because if I became tired of, I wonder what you're thinking about me because I have lots and all of that, then my own self-confidence and capacity got torn by that. Because she herself will be saying, wait, it's a woman with like that. If it's the person who came, must be all women, this woman will only teach people. You know, that may not have been her perception.
Right.
So if I don't bring to her that self, and I think that self that tells her, no, don't forget about the dogs. Look who you're talking to. Yeah? And this is, to me, is very important about us and our relationships with people. I, as a Rasta woman, have been all over the world. I have met with some of with people at very high levels within the United Nations, so. And I always carry myself to them. Yeah? That power of self. And I want us as African people to understand that power that we have as self. And when we exert that self, a lot of that negativity that people automatically from their own inadequacies tend to see and judge you as is thrown out of the door. Because you're bringing a self to them that they have to deal with. And we have to understand the power of that energy. Yeah, you know, we walk with an energy, you know. And I think all of these things came about us understanding ourselves, and then to me that's what the revolution was directing us to do. Understand who we are. You know, that power is not just in the fist, that power is in the self, you know, and that energy that radiates and emanates from us.
Okay.
Short, right?
Yeah, that was good. No, that was good. That was good. So my last question is, you talk a lot about the entrepreneurial side of the ESC. Has the ESC petitioned the government to acquire land? Because I know the Black Caucus, they had acquired a piece of land, a very nice piece of land, a matter of fact, that is just bush now, right? Where I believe if it was used the way it was set out to be used, we could have, you know, we could have had a place where we could go as an African village, right? Where we have businesses like Andre, Modupe, you know, you get drums, you have the Drag Brothers and all these people come and be involved. Have you all embarked on anything like that, or is it something in the future that's...
Yes, we have been trying to get the land.
Right.
It has been a challenge because we have to find it.
Okay.
You know, we have to find land that is in an unencumbered, it is free, and that kind of thing. Maybe we have not been as diligent as we should because we ourselves perhaps maybe don't know the pathways to do that, but it has always been on our agenda. We have raised it again with different ministers, but we have to find the land that is not only well located, but also, of course, easily accessible for all our people and so on. So it is definitely, especially after you recently were talking about an agro-tourism project where we had land, where we have great food, where we have businesses, where we can set up a space and so on. We actually wrote a project, we wrote about it. But it is something I think we have to really maybe get like a team of people that is just focused on that, because what happens with the few of us who work at the office is that there's so many things that we are doing at the time, so that you find that the things that are not in your face don't be given as much energy. But I think it is critical as part of the legacy. I'm talking about the kind of institutions that I hope we can build. You know, just recently I was talking about that. How do we have this space throughout the year? Where our entrepreneurs can just be there. If you have this African market, it's not a once a year thing. It is, you know. But
and those things are income generating for the ESC as well, because I mean, even though you all would acquire the land, it can't be a free for all. It must be a situation where either a percentage of your proceeds go back to the ESC, or you pay a rent. You pay a small rent, you know?
Yeah, I think it has to be done. It must be done. And, you know, if there's anyone out there who can help us to, you know, perhaps identify a piece of land that is not, you know,
well, there you go,
okay, so
because I'm going to throw that out there.
Yes, let
anybody
us know.
That might be listening, I will put it across to some people. And I'll put it across to some people as well. So contact you all on two things. If they could think of it on the back, or if they're willing to work with all it to source to look at that.
Yes, definitely. Yes, if I get the little persons who really dedicated to help us do that, and if it is we all have that keen interest, that's what I'm talking about. Let's come together and make it happen. We can't make everything happen. We need help. And therefore, we can think of a project where we can actually do something that is critical, and we welcome the support.
Because there is an aspect of the Pan-African Festival TT that I had to talk about today, right?
Yes.
Besides the money, is for me, as a vendor in that for the last 10 years.
So long, Andrew, that's a
Yeah. Yeah. Besides, it's the biggest money making time of the year for me. But besides that, was something I realized last year when I rent a banker for the vibes.
Yes.
Real banker. For not being there. For some people that I would have only seen once a year.
That's right, they come to check for you.
Yeah, some of the other vendors
yes.
and things.
Yes.
You know that you see, I've made some real good. I mean, people like Miss Colleen, the soap lady.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
I know for sure.
Yeah.
I see Miss Colleen and some of the other vendors. But there's an energy that is present when you're there. You know, and I remember meeting people and they're telling me them come from Point.
Yes, yes.
Them come from Point to spend the day in the village because they know it have plenty food, it's a thing to buy, it's a thing to see, you know. So that's an aspect
and as we're talking about, if you will allow me, I don't know if you're aware that Kamara has transitioned.
Yes, so our dear brother Kamara.
We should, mention. I mean, it was amazing, and what is amazing to me about Kamara, just this morning I was writing something on somebody had mentioned it and I was commenting on it, is the growth I saw of this brother in this village, this African entrepreneur, you know. So I said that he has created a legacy. I really hope that others are willing to follow his footsteps, you know, because you've got this brother who, you know, come in and you saw him grow every year, you know, expand. You know, till 2019, you know, he was the first to get a rent of 20 by 2010, which is because we rent to corporate people. And he paid the price. And so he was properly, you know, strategically located in the village in 2019 when we were outside, you know. But such a humble and simple, and simple, I don't mean it in any negative way, but just an easy person to, you know, you go and meet Kamara is just, you know, cool, rootsy, everything, you know, pleasant all the time, you know. So I felt really, really sad when I heard of his transition, and so we wish him peaceful travels, and as we continue to live in the hearts and minds of those of us on this side, but I also hope that his children continue to build that legacy that he has left them, you know, because it's
you bring up the name, so I feel I need to mention that Brother Kamara was the first person with a business that was willing to take my clothing to sell in their business. And he didn't do it off our consignment. He bought it outright, hung it up in his store, saying, every time I saw Brother Kamara, every time was encouraging words. And you would know that from me with him. Always encouraging, you know, don't stop, you know, everything. Right. I mean, I'm beating up myself because I'm looking for a picture that I had with him. The only picture that I had with him, I'm looking for this picture. I went to the store, I don't know, we greeted and thing, and as you say, real cool, real humble. Always willing to give some kind of positive word. I don't forget, brother. I don't forget him at all.
And that's important to see the relationships that we build in these different spaces. I have got to know people from all over Trinidad and Tobago, you know, just from the street procession. You know, just talking with people. And now when we are having meetings, people from south, from there, who are coming. So we have made this kind of connection with people from all over the country. And then and the energy. And that's what, and we must not underestimate the value of energy, because life has positive and negative energies. And positive energies continue to strengthen and make us more powerful, more whole. And therefore those opportunities when we miss it, is that we didn't get some medicine, you know, we missing something because we didn't understand. It's just how people are. Some people, carnival for them is this time. If I know friends, you know, if they don't be present on Juve morning, as if something critical has happened in their life, because we underestimate, and that's why we say biopic carnival is important. What happens is the energy that people experience as they're part of different things. So participating in that street procession on Emancipation Day, I mean, the people who I've seen in street procession and even in the flambeau procession in the night, who I know normally in life, you know, you would never imagine that they would be part of that. But once you experience it and you get that energy, you know that is something that you need. You know that you need, you know, for part of your experience.
My father keep telling me, so when I started coming to the village in 2002, he keep telling me, it's like you need to go to a procession in the morning. Because I had to come down to the village like lunchtime and stay for the rest of the day. Well, first day, I can tell you exactly why I had when I first say I'm black. I didn't try to do black up and all that. No, I slip out. When I done that procession, me in the village. So I in town after 6 in the morning. And leave the village after 8 in the night. That procession, where people telling me, boy, you sure your father can't fly? What do you mean? Because when them jumps started playing, my father started jump. But they see he flying, my train come and say that. I said, see your father jump because my wife bounces him up here. And see him jumping. You know? But and he's not the only because the first person, but as you go along, more and more people tell you about that. I keep telling him.
I want to go.
That procession.
And actually, if the day, normally, we don't sleep the night before procession. So we are in the village, holding time up, not to whole day, but as after a week, as they know, we be there all night. So we are in the village all night, making sure everything organized, because we have to get up early, we have to carry down all these things down to flags and this and food and all of that. Make sure the drivers come on time, make sure the groups aren't having any problems, make sure all of that. So we don't sleep. So we might leave the village in Savannah maybe like about, because remember we have the first event starts at 4 in the morning. So we might end up leaving in Savannah like about 2, about 2. I tell the girls, right, you have half an hour to get dressed. Right, who's staying in town, who's staying in the village. We go, we get dressed, we go down to All-Star Spaniard, we have the thing, this is not sleep. Walk down to the promenade, watch out the Freedom Morning come. Then you go straight now to bringing in the groups. Because when the groups come, you have to register, you have to make sure everybody get their flags, this, that. All of this is no sleep. And then, but there's something in this, is I have to walk the procession. Right? Because the thing I asked them to open the office, I'll take one of the cars to drop us up, but I told them I must walk this procession. You follow that? And even if by the time I'm jumping in the village, but then they have flammable procession in the night. So I'm just showing you, so we walk the procession, you try to make it through the day, people come in the day, asking for this, asking for that, you're fighting and sleep, you're fighting and sleep, you're fighting and sleep, but then after flammable procession reach, you have to pull the energy and come back, you know? And then you walk the flammable procession all the way back down from the Savannah to All-Star Spaniard. In the early days when you should be at Muraco, you have to walk the flammable procession from Muraco to All-Star Spaniard. I mean, my son, I had a son who used to say, Mommy, I will drive, okay? Just in case you can't make it. You know, so I would walk and he was trying to drive and keep the car. But I'm just showing you the energy. Energy is an amazing thing. And those of us who are spiritual, you understand that. If once you just allow that energy to take you through, you can spend days working if you have to. Of course, at the end of it, where the spirit,
of course, you need to
say, all right, okay, you will be like that. But the point is, once you need to get it done, that spirit is going to see you through. That is the things that I think to me are so critical about us understanding about ourselves, and young people in particular, who I find sometimes, you get tired, they get weary, they don't have that endurance and tenacity.
But that's why we need you.
That's right.
And I'm going to say you are referring to all the elders.
Yes.
Because
the olders.
yes, I said that is my phrase.
Yes.
In the African community,
Yes.
we have too much of elders and not enough elders. So that's why we need you, and I mean you as in you hold all the people that, because how break down now there?
Yes.
I mean that's like, but each one of us experience that in some way, form or fashion.
Yes.
But here I want to go with before we close off, right? So I saw a monument go up by the church. But boy, I heard about it happening, and I'm on and I going down the road. And I tell people, it called me, because I was going to pass it straight. I have no reason to look. And hey, the very, I took a picture next day.
Yeah, that's how we knew it was artist. You sent this picture with himself in front of it. Right. The artist had gone and had.
Right.
But yes.
But then somebody told me there were a lot of disparaging remarks made, disrespectful remarks made about it, and African people on the whole by some Italian people. And I said that is a great opportunity for us to keep pushing our culture, because this is how I see it. I leave room to be wrong. Most other ethnic groups don't want us to live some of the things that we have spoken here, because they know that it would take away financially from nothing else. We don't have to do anything physical or nothing. We just have to live in that love thing you talk about. We just have to understand and appreciate self and work with ourselves more, and we would see betterment, right? Are there any plans for more monuments like that across the country?
Oh, definitely. We are working, and I'm keeping my fingers and toes crossed that all works well, because we have had one that we planned for the Yoruba village, and as I said, whereas the one that we unveiled last year in front of the Treasury building is a sort of a modern interpretation. The one that we are going to unveil in the Yoruba Village Square, where we have the Yoruba Village Drum Festival every year, it's really, it's Yoruba. It is, it is raw, it's raw, and I am hoping that everything was well, so by Emancipation Day we can also unveil that. And I think this would have been a powerful achievement for us in this decade, for people of African descent, to have on the main thoroughfare in Port-of-Spain 2 monuments that reflects us as African people in this space where we now have, we have a Chinese pathway. So we need to ensure that this space, this community, East Dry River, that community, that we have this powerful representation of ourselves. We must not, and as part of that energy and self that we're talking about, that is so energized by the things that we surround ourselves with. And that's why we naming our streets is important, ensuring that all groups, and I have no issue with every group being well represented in the society, but I have an issue that we are not represented, and therefore we have to make that our duty and our responsibility to ensure that wherever there's an appropriate space or representation, we fight for it. Like we have to rename Oxford Street Kwame Ture Street.
So I was going to get to that, right?
Yes.
Sister Zakiya, because why do you think? I think I have an idea, but I want to hear from. Why do you think that some of our people, especially, hold on to these things? So I mean, why wouldn't you want to rename Oxford Street after a world-renowned Trinidadian who never forget his Trinidadian roots? He didn't stop coming here because he didn't want to come here. He stopped coming here because he was banned by the leadership of the country. All right? And as soon as he could have come, he came. Why wouldn't you want to rename a street after him?
Or you move Columbus, for example.
Well, that's not what we're talking about Yoruba.
Yes.
Because for me,
You'll be facing.
for me, we have got that Columbus statuette. I think it's a total disrespect,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
To have Yoruba village and a Yoruba square,
Yes.
and right next to it
Yes.
is Christopher Columbus. Like, we always so love Christopher Columbus. Take him and put him in one of the communities that
Exactly. That you where he is.
living predominantly.
Oh,
But
definitely.
to have that, because I tell them, I remember the year that the First Nation people got the one of all it.
Yes.
I was interviewed. I know that interview with National because they asked me if I think we should really move the Columbus statue. And you know from here, we speak over the years, and you know, there are times when I can be very passionate. So because it was in a camera, I was boisterous but not obscene or anything.
Passionate.
Right. And a Caucasian lady asked, well, why not? So I simply asked her, if my great-great-grandfather raped your great-great-grandmother and murdered some people in your family, but after that, I was considered successful,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Would you want a statue of me
Yes.
In your community.
right down the hill where you live in?
Yeah.
And if we take that statue of a black man that did that to a white person and put it in front of anyone in the community at the bottom of Westmoreland, I guarantee it wouldn't last a day, and that was the end of the conversation.
Yes. Yes.
So we accept that disrespect. That statue there is a total disrespect.
And I think again it's the same as you're talking about our consciousness, our understanding truth and reality. You know what I'm saying? And because I always say that we have gone through quite a number of years of brainwashing, and we must not deny that. We were enslaved for a period of, almost 500 years. We have only now celebrated the 183rd anniversary, exactly. Not even half of the time that you were enslaved. And therefore, the amount, the consciousness is going to still abide not in the majority. You're going to have the warriors in every society. Even at the time of enslavement, you had the warriors, you had the revolutionaries, but you had those who said, listen, this is what I know. Because after 500, because as I said, generation after generation, that's your reality. It's only those who still, there's something in their mind, because if I find like in one family, somebody might be very revolutionary, but the other says, so what's your problem? Why you have to do it so? It's because there's always a few who have that, who have the genetics or something that want to continue the fight. But the majority tend to say, what it is you're fighting for, you want to get killed, we just humble all these people, you have those. And we have to understand that a lot of the majority of us are going to say, this is the norm, I just settle down, I just live in my life, I reach the norm.
Friends, my age that say that same.
But there are those of us, and therefore those of us who know our calling, because you will know. You know that you will know. So once you know that that's what you have to do, then you have to do it, because you are the ones who are saving the race. You are the ones who are honoring the sacrifice of the ancestors who were warriors. And therefore we have to continue. And then I am absolutely 100% certain, I have no fear whatsoever that there are those who may not know the calling yet, but they will know.
Yes. Because
once we have gone on, there are those who are continuing. And we see them in some of the children, and our children. I remember my children at the office we always talk about, there was a year where for some reason I had to travel out of Trinidad and I would not have been back on Emancipation Support. And to everybody, what are we going to do? I suppose I'm on the phone with them 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning just to say, come here. But on that morning, I remember the young sister who said, help me, Sancho. She said, Auntie, just as long you were there very early, my first son. Without just
no encouragement,
was right there present. It's the spirit. So there's this. So they saw at anything that they needed, what he could have done to help, he was there to help. So when he's not in spirit yet, but you see, and once those spaces, once we have created, and again, as I'm talking about the self and the energy and so on, once you have done it and you have been a good example and you have impacted people's lives in a positive way, when you are no longer there, I am 100% in a short. It's in the divine energy of life and how that works, that space will be filled. You know, so we sit down and we are worried. No, what will happen? No, when we're gone, the space will be filled because I fill a space. I didn't know that I would.
Right.
You understand? You, I fill a space. Andre is filling a space. And therefore, it will continue from generation to generation. And people, as we say, those who want to fill the space, they don't even know yet. And I think, but when that spiritual fuel, I say, there's have to go, you know? And get the joy and fulfillment of doing it. I don't want to sacrifice. It's not a negative thing. But when you have to sacrifice, you have to stay up late, you have to do all of that. That is what is empowering and strengthening about being a human being. Going through all of those difficult and challenging things and conquering.
Yes.
I'm safe, I'm strong, if I did never live the week.
That's right.
But my Zakiya, one, it now hit my hair, boy, that I ain't even write it down no way.
What's that?
Cool Africa, boy.
Yes.
It's something we must talk about, boy.
Yes, yes, it's true. I didn't even talk about it.
Yeah, boy. I mean, Cool Africa is the fashion show.
Right.
You know, and I don't know of any like it anywhere else in the Caribbean. I wouldn't say the world has it.
Yes.
But I don't know about any of it, anything like it in the Caribbean. And before you start, I want to say this.
Sure.
And 2015 was the first Cool Africa.
Yes.
I was invited to take part. Earlier, I still had one of my experiences because that was the first fashion show I ever took part in, right? I was watching some of these designers. Like, I mean, I don't put myself under anybody or anything, but at the point in time, I was looking like, oh, yeah, boy, you know, and to see where it has grown into, because I know people who will look forward to Kura.
Yes,
including myself.
Yes.
Tell us a little more about Kura.
Yeah, we were planning. I had started to talk to someone. We were actually beginning to plan it and trying to do a hybrid version of it. Something that would have been streamed live with a limited audience, because up to the time when we were talking, that was happening. And then this whole resurge of the pandemic has come. So it brought a lot of concern to me with respect to the funding to do it. Some of these places are closed because we normally do this on July the 1st, and so on. So we have put a hold on what is possible. If we are not able to do a live show, I am hoping that we might be able to do something in maybe African History Month. But what we are hoping to do, if we are not able to do anything at all, is also to create a show that we could put online using some of the, showcasing some of the past beautiful exhibits. And one of the points we were making is, when we do these things, we do it to an audience of maybe 200 something people. But there are thousands of people who have never seen it. And therefore, it's an opportunity to also showcase, re-showcase. So we are thinking that we might want to curate a show using some of the old footage and put something together and present it online, maybe for this year. If according to funds and those kinds of things, because the fashion show is one that we must have funds to invest in. You have your models to pay, you have the person who is coordinating. I mean, there's so many aspects of it. So we're going to watch to see if African History Month presents an opportunity. But we do have to pray that perhaps 2022 is the beginning of us. I was hoping 2021 was that year, but it was but so 2022.
In terms of showing the show, right? You'll contemplate taking some of your footage to like TV6.
Definitely, yes. Once we record, TTT will take our stuff and show it.
Yeah,
yes.
I think that might be.
Yeah, so they did that with some of our events last year. We did the recording and we gave it to them.
Okay.
And yes.
Okay. I have no more questions. I mean, I have plenty of questions, but for after.
Yes.
But one of the things I would like, I hope you'll give us the information, is that our following so far has been people like us, young persons from the 80s, 90s, who and even some of the younger ones who are the millennials, who would want to get involved. I know I for sure don't ready to say, well, boy, I need to know what to sign up. I want to get involved, right? As Andrew would rightfully tell you just now, I am very motivated. I'm very action oriented. I do talk, right? If you say, Karen, we're going to burn down here, I did, right?
Yes.
So a lot of the things that people would like to know is like how to get in contact with you all. Like the calendar of events that take place surrounding the Emancipation Support Committee and things like that. Because you're talking about a lot of things there that I have never heard of, right? And there's a lot of the things that I would like, because I saw something in my children and I took them to the village. There was the National Archives.
Yes.
Right?
They do a beautiful exhibit.
Correct. And my daughter was like this.
Yes.
And she read everything in that tent. In that little space of time, she sat by the door and she walked all the way around and she read everything. She took some little pamphlets and thing, and I mean, of course, we never discuss it, right? Because I don't know, I don't want to force her or force my son or anybody. I want them to come to it naturally because I am charting a course for them to follow, right? So, if there is anything that you could leave with us in terms of information, we will put it in the description for the show. We will put it on Instagram because I'm following the page as well on both Facebook and Instagram, so that we can get people engaged. You all have a YouTube page too?
Yes.
Right. So all those things, I'll put the links to the YouTube. I'll put the links to the IG, the Facebook, any contact information. Because I'm sure if there's one person like me, there will be others.
Of course, indeed. So we really want to build a strong, and maybe use not the best word, but a group of another next generation of persons who can bring to the organization not only skills and talents, but that youth perspective on things and approach and so on. So we would be really, really happy if you are saying that you're only millennials.
I 81. I born 81.
But even your group, because you are a generation behind us, and therefore we want that voice. And I mean, the Emancipation Support Committee always used to have a strong youth arm, but at the time, our children were the youth arm.
Right.
So all our children. I mean, you would have loved that, Andrew, when they first used to do the village. We didn't have someone who came and do deco. You see, our children came in the village, and the same way we were there all day, all night. They were doing papier-mâché and building everything that decorated the village. The youth did that, so they had young artists and so on. I thought it was the most beautiful experience. They did the stage, they did everything as a start for children, and children, my children, everybody.
Everybody big now.
Yeah. What happened? They get big.
Right.
They get married. They have families. So they focus, and then and then they mind the son. I in this long time,
Yeah.
They're not, I get the feeling that give their reach. They're fortunate, but a part of which they had no choice because we're going to the village tonight.
Right.
You're going to the village. But so you need that continuation of young people who would be willing, and they used to have their own. New term, they used to create their own ways of earning funds, and we would go perhaps and talk with them, help to build consciousness and awareness and so on. So we really want to do that. So young people who are interested, I will leave all the information with Andre and Karen, and then you all can contact us and we can begin to build a force to recommend. Because I know there are many, many very conscious young people out there, but maybe with their own perceptions and the Emancipation Support Committee, that are old people. No, I before the old person, the directors, the workers of the organization are young people. And we want young people, we want to hear young voices, and we want you to experience the beauty of giving of self. There is something that is so empowering about committing to an ideal or committing to a struggle or committing to making change just for the purpose of doing that. It is so empowering, and we really want as many of them as possible to benefit. Yes.
You have any quotes that you would like to close us off with? Because we try to close off with African quotes. We've had so many.
One of the things that I normally just do whatever comes to my head, and Tracy Wilson always told us that when African people met, they always asked, how are the children?
Mm-hmm.
How are the children? Saying that they always wanted to know that the children are well.
Mm-hmm.
Because if our children are well, our future is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I also like the one that says, I am because you are. You know, which is Rastafari,
Mm-hmm.
I and I.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Bonnie Wheeler sings that in the beginning it was always I.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, when the mighty devil came up, it became you and I. And he says, at the time we had you and I, we saw the destruction of the earth and all of the negative things. I don't know if you know that song by Bonnie Wheeler. But the concept of I and I is that you, that other person, each of us is I.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if I see everybody as I,
Mm-hmm.
then the caring, the compassion, the sharing, how we view each other
Mm-hmm.
is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you are not different. We are
That's
all
right.
I.
That's
You
right.
know, and that is the constant thing between I and I, which is the
I and
rest of
I,
yes, you know, we are all one. We are the same, and therefore we treat each other the same. We care about each other the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Africa is if one man is free or is not free, then none of us are free.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Because I am, because you are.
Wow. All right, so we're grateful very much for you coming.
Yes, thank you too. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Right.
Zakiya, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I feel we are going to call it one early. Because I'm sure
definitely.
when we sit down and we watch it over, and it's like, we know we should
Yeah, there's something, yes, of
yeah,
course. Yes.
Even closer to when let me see well how it go with the pandemic, you know, or
That's right.
something.
Yes.
Even when it coming closer to the time frame that we
Yes.
are going to have the festival.
Yes.
And you know, just to bring it back up, but thank you. Thank you for the works.
Yes.
I wish you continue good health
Thank you.
and long life in good health.
Yes.
And it's something I very stress on because I say people wishing you a long life with like
You need to
I
be
don't-
well.
Yeah,
You need to be well.
yeah, wish you long life and good
I
health.
don't want to be here if I'm
Yeah.
not well and can't
Yeah.
function.
Yeah, to continue to do what you're doing, but to also to teach and inspire the next generation, including us.
Yes.
But we have plenty to learn.
Yes.
And one thing I realize is that when youth and elders work together,
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing that we can.
Indeed.
And also thank you for coming here today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you too. Yes. One.
So, all the time.
Yes.
What next one, yeah? Yeah, this was one of them.
Yeah. All right, folks, so thanks again for joining us. Next week.
Okay.